I didn't think this part through, but I'm going to give a brief introduction of each one of us. Hopefully they're wherever you guys are talking, whether that's the admissions office. Oh, thanks. Can we... Okay. I'm going to... Can we switch to... lecture text? There we go. So the other instructors will introduce themselves via the chat field. Then we're going to go over the syllabus and the outline of the course, just so that we can all be on the same page. Then I'm going to do some basic guides to evolution, phylogenetics, and geologic time, just so that we all have the same base level of knowledge. Then we're going to talk about what a dinosaur actually is. Feels like it's a good point to start for this kind of class. Then we're going to talk about the evolution of amniotes, a term I'll explain more later, in the Permian period, which is the period right before dinosaurs showed up. And then we're going to talk about the Permian extinction and the rise of archosaurs after the Permian extinction, and then the origin of dinosaurs, which obviously is where we're really starting. I'd prefer that we don't use the stream chat just because I can use Discord on my phone. That is literally the only reason I don't want to have to pull up a window on my computer to use the Twitch chat. I hope that that's okay with everyone. Like, that's literally it. I have an app for Discord on my phone. I do not have a Twitch app on my phone that works decently. So yeah. Okay. So, right. So first, introducing instructors. I have my life together. Okay. So, I am Meg. I am your primary lecturer. I'm currently a PhD student in evolutionary biology at UIC. So Chicago, public university in Chicago. I've been here for 3 years. Because I completed my prelim exam, that means I have a master's degree through UIC. I got a bachelor's of science in biology from Notre Dame, which is ironic because I'm Jewish now, but let's not go too much into that. And so I have been studying a lot of different subjects. You don't have to take notes right now, Jesse Figure, because I'm just talking about myself. Like, unless you want to take notes about how bad I am at talking about myself, which I figure you don't. My fiance is laughing at me in the corner. So, anyway, moving on. Yeah, moving on. Sorry, distracted by lots of things. So, okay, so, in undergrad, so at Notre Dame, I did most of my research on ecological speciation, so the situations in environments that lead to different organisms speciating, and then also paleobiology of the Burgess Shale. You'll note neither of those things are dinosaur related. And as a grad student, I have studied genetics a lot, evolutionary developmental biology, and so how the actual morphology, so body shape of an animal and how its development impacts their speciation. So I've done a lot of studying in evolution. Pretty much all of my dinosaur study has either been through classes or and they like to sing. Sorry in advance, they will not shut up. I can't, it's gonna happen. Anyway, okay. So, sorry about that. Oh, God. The internet's gone again. Are you watching something?
What else am I supposed to
I
do?
know. I'm sorry. Just ignore me forever.
No, okay. Can you grab my Batman DVD from the shelf?
Oh, Lord. Okay. Apparently this is happening now. Where on the shelf?
At the B in the TV shows. I mean, Avatar and Castle, right there, season 1. Thank you.
Sorry. We're trying to make it so I have maximum internet. My bad. My bad so much. It wasn't that. It was that I had to grab a Batman DVD. Anyway, so I have taught many other subjects, though. I've taught organic chemistry, evolutionary biology, ecology, genetics, comparative vertebrate anatomy, history of life, and microbiome. So I've taught everything, really, in biology, when you get right down to it. And I designed this dinosaur course using a course that I took about how to design college courses. So you guys are my guinea pigs on whether or not I can actually design a college-level course. So thanks for that. Really appreciate it. I'm glad lots of people have birds. We are not watching Batman in class. Max is watching Batman while I'm doing this because he doesn't want to listen, because frankly, living with me is taking this class. So, there you go. Alright, so as for other lecturers, we have... Yeah, okay. We have Blair, who's not going to make it today. He is currently transferring from the University of Rochester to the University of Wyoming, which, you know, thank God, because he was not happy at Rochester. Anyway, and he is working on a bachelor's degree in... on a bachelor's degree in geology at Wyoming. He has worked in geology lab workshops and has studied a lot of evolutionary biology and geology as well as veterinary medicine. So that's something I don't know, and field geology. And he has technical experience working with stable isotopes from the Cyril lab at the University of Rochester, and thinks a lot about arachnids, which is not something we have in common. And he's based in Utah, so I'm in Chicago and he's in Utah. Oh, that's cool that you're in Rochester, Magic Birdie. Any hoozles. So Blair will probably talk more about himself when he is lecturing on Thursday. I would lecture on Thursday if I didn't have to teach microbiome right before. You don't want me to do 2 lectures in one day. I'm just letting you know. Anyway, there we go. Okay, so our primary teaching assistant is Alb. I can't troubleshoot. Henry, I know you're listening. Troubleshoot the problems that people are talking about in the chat. Okay, so Alb is also a PhD student in biology at the University of Bath, so far away from here, which is why I see him once a year at SVP. He has a master's degree in paleobiology from the University of Bristol. Thank you, Al. Okay, from the University of Bristol. He has a Bachelor's of Science in Geology from the University of Maryland, where the great and powerful Thomas Holtz is an instructor. He has teaching experience in the fossil record of vanished worlds of the prehistoric past, which I'm assuming is just a paleontology class. I just kind of listed the general subjects of the classes I taught, but sure. Science and global change, evolution in deep time, and practical research and academic skills for biologists. He's currently researching bird evolution, which, congrats. Jealous. His past research subjects include pancrustacean phylogeny and theropod diversity. He draws cartoon phylogenies, writes about rodents, and tweets long Twitter threads about birds. Can confirm. And he's based in Bath, so those are the times that he is available. And our last teaching assistant is Henry Thomas, who is often self-deprecating. Ignore that, because he's great. He's an undergrad right now in integrative biology at the University of California at Berkeley. So he's in San Fran. He studies phylogenetics, pterosaur biology, and animal sound. besides Mark Whidden, I don't know anyone who knows more about pterosaurs than Henry. So that. He works on many projects about prehistoric life, pterosaurs, and synapsids. So there you go. More expertise about these topics. Basin path, sorry. Okay, so now I'm going to briefly close Discord on my phone, so I can't see what you guys are saying anymore, but that's because I want to pull up your syllabus, because that's what we're doing next. We are going to go over the syllabus and the course outline, so if you are able to pull it up yourself, that would be fan-freaking-tastic. If you can't, that's fine too. You can listen to this lecture again after it's done. Like, we are going to be saving the lectures and posting them, probably on the ADAD channel, maybe my personal channel. We haven't decided yet. Yeah, so there it is. There's the syllabus. I have like multiple files labeled syllabus because I'm a teaching assistant, so there you go. It's loading on my phone. So what is this course? The fancy description that we list in the syllabus is, this course will cover the evolution of dinosaurs from their origins in the Triassic to their diversification during the Jurassic and Cretaceous, to the extinction of non-avian forms and the diversification of avian dinosaurs during the Cenozoic until today. This course will integrate biology, geology, and paleontology, and present students with a case study in how a single group of animals responded to environmental change, which can be applied to climate change and other challenges in conservation today. So, not to go on a long, rambling rant, but a lot of times people question why we study prehistoric life at all, why we focus on any specific groups of organisms, such as dinosaurs. And a major thing, at least in my view, that dinosaurs provide for us in terms of studying is that they are a case study. They are a specific system that we can look at and draw conclusions about other systems from. So we can take the microcosm that is dinosaur evolution and apply the same general principles to other groups. So we're going to be going over a lot of minute detail. We're going to go over a lot of specific groups of animals, specific time periods. But if I want you guys to take away anything from this course, it's not necessarily trivia about dinosaurs. It's about how dinosaurs are, frankly, a perfect example of how the environment and evolution interact with one another, and how organisms adapt to changing situations over time and over long periods of time. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but modern birds are extraordinarily different from the first dinosaurs. It's almost like scientists have been debating for centuries over whether or not birds constitute dinosaurs. But I'm on a tangent now. So this whole course being offered online is part of an ongoing study that I'm doing with the other instructors and two other people that you'll notice from the Discord chat, Maya and Austin, who would be here if he wasn't in the field, on how well we can use the internet to teach paleontology and biology and geology and all other related subjects. Though traditional education has its merits and is extremely good, in my opinion. Like, I don't think that we should knock traditional education too much, frankly. It does what it does. Learning is something that we should be doing our entire lives. Learning should not be limited only to people who can afford it. And learning should not only be for developing one's career. And so a big part of my own personal philosophy, not that we need to get too deep in our first class, is that learning should be accessible to everyone, and everyone should be able to learn the same things that the rest of us who are lucky enough to attend higher education and do these kinds of things. I forget what the end of the sentence was. Everyone should be able to do what we do or have access to the knowledge that we have. So thank you. I'm glad my birds agree with me. Yes, you also should be able to learn about dinosaurs. Okay, so sadly, they do not have the brain power. Okay, so because of that, we're trying a more formal classroom structure rather than just word-of-mouth learning and the kind of learning that I do through my blog and through talking to people. And we're going to see if it works out. If nothing else, when I propose this as a course for me to teach at UIC, I'll know what works and what doesn't. And Obviously, that's worst case scenario. So there's that. Sadly, this course is not accredited by any institution. This is literally just an experiment. I'm sorry if you were hoping that you could get credit for the college you're attending or for the college you will attend or anything similar. It's not accredited. I wish it was accredited. That would be great, but it's not. And it wouldn't be because I don't know how I would get it accredited. So that's a problem for future Meg. I'm going to try to be as accessible as I possibly can. Naturally, there are limitations for me as well as for the platform we are using. For example, I have ADHD, so sometimes my brain is going to flake, and I apologize for that in advance. Will do my best to not have that happen. I mean, I've been teaching for 6 years. In theory, I can teach now. Okay, so there you go. So just if you're having accessibility issues, don't feel afraid to talk to me or to any of the other instructors. Promise none of us might. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the learning objectives of the course. So this is just kind of your guideline for when we're done, what I want you to know or be able to do. Again, it's not so much about knowing every single genus of dinosaur, because, look, I run a blog called A Dinosaur Day, and I'm describing every genus of dinosaur, and I don't even remember them all, so so this is just what I want you to get out of the class in theory. So I want you to be able to understand the causes, patterns, and effects of dinosaur evolution over the past 250 million years, including the evolution of birds. So oftentimes when we teach things about dinosaurs, we stop at the Cretaceous extinction, which, I mean, there are merits to that. You can cover the Mesozoic in more detail, and the Cenozoic is basically just another, it's a whole other thing. It's very separate. But I think if we're going to really treat birds as living dinosaurs, which we should, because they are, more on that later, obviously. But if we really are going to do that, then we have to give both time periods time. So we can't just cover the Mesozoic, and we can't just cover the Cenozoic either. So obviously in an ideal world, we'd focus more on one or the other, and maybe sometime I'll do just a Cenozoic birds class, but for now we're going to smush in the Cenozoic at the end of the course and give it some time, a decent chunk of time, especially because it's often not what people really know coming in. Like, I know a lot of you guys already know a lot about Mesozoic dinosaurs, but you probably don't know very much about the Cenozoic ones, so there you go. And then we're going to use the evolution of dinosaurs as a model system for understanding macroevolutionary concepts like phylogenetics, environmental effects on evolutionary patterns, how the environment affects the evolution of organisms, because it does, and it is right now, how biogeography works, so how where an animal lives influences its own evolution and ecology. The concepts of geologic time. The Earth is very old. It's hard to, visualize that. We're going to go over that a lot. And paleobiology, so figuring out how organisms that lived in the past lived. And we're also going to critically evaluate a lot of topics that are currently up for debate and controversy in dinosaur paleontology. Both those topics of debate that are still being debated today, and those that are mostly settled. And so we're going to look and try to understand the evidence involved in these arguments and use that evidence to form our own conclusions. So we're going to be doing some hands-on science in this class. Get excited. Woo! Armchair paleontology, because I can't take you out on digs because you're all over the world. Okay, so we are going to have this class on Mondays and Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. my time. I'm sorry everything's listed in my time, but I am the instructor, so I do get to call dibs on the time zone. So it's going to be from 7 to 9 Central Time. We are working with everyone for whom this time does not work, so that you guys can still participate and still get the full excitement of the class. So I will be available Sunday for office hours from 5 to 7. I'm really not that very available outside of that time, apart from maybe some casual interactions, just because I'm doing a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of responsibilities in my life. And I teach microbiome lab right now, and that takes up lots of my time. So there you go. Blair will be available from 9 to 11 on Thursday, right after class ends. So if you want to be able to talk to someone right after the lectures for the week are over, that's your time. Al will be available on Sunday right before my office hours, so if you're better hours or earlier than what I do, that's when you should go. And Henry will do a little bit earlier than I do on Saturdays, so if you want to have someone available on Saturdays, he is your man for that. All right, so we're going to cover a variety of topics, but these are the main ones. Sorry, I briefly looked at Discord. This was a mistake. Okay, so we're going to go over the origin of dinosaurs and the effects of mass extinctions on biodiversity and faunal turnover. Those are fancy words. That means how major disasters in the environment affect what organisms live or die. That's it. That's the end of the sentence. So we're going to look at 3 specific mass extinctions because those are the big 3 that impacted the evolution of dinosaurs: the end Permian, the end Triassic, and the end Cretaceous. There were other extinctions in that time, and obviously things didn't live forever, so animals living, say, at the beginning of the Jurassic were very different from those living at the end of the Cretaceous, but those mass extinctions did have major impacts on how dinosaurs evolved. We're then going to look at the major traits and groups of ornithoceans, so the bird-hipped dinosaurs. I'm saying that in quotes. If you read the primer, which you should have, you will note that that having a bird hip, quotes, I'm doing air quotes again, is not actually unique to ornithoceans, but that's a discussion for another time. Then we're going to go over sauropodomorphs, which we're really going to be doing all the prosauropods in the Triassic lecture, so that. And then theropods and the evolution of birds in the Cenozoic and how we understand dinosaurs today. And we're going to have a big lecture about our modern understanding of dinosaurs at the end of the class, but we're also going to pepper it in here and there throughout the class because science is evolving. Okay. So I want you to get a lot of good skills out of this course because, you know, you don't take a class so that you memorize minute details because, frankly, you will forget them in approximately 1 month. What I want you to do is to be able to do things that you weren't able to do before. So first things first, I want you to be able to get key points from scientific papers. We are not going to train you how to read a scientific paper in detail because y'all are coming from lots of different places in your learning journeys, and I cannot teach all of you how to read a scientific paper because some of you know how to already, and some of you have never touched one in the entirety of your life. All we're going to try to get you guys to be able to do is be able to get the important parts out of a scientific paper because there's a lot of padding in them. As someone who has written scientific papers, we like to fill up the space. And I want you to be able to read and understand phylogenetic trees. We're going to do a little bit of that today, but mainly I'm going to have you guys learn how to read and understand them through practical, hands-on work. The interplay of the environment and the living things within it, how to synthesize various scientific disciplines because paleontology is itself a multidisciplinary subject. You can't just be a geologist, you can't just be a biologist, you have to be both. And understand controversies in paleontology and how to form your own opinions about them because it's really easy just to go with whoever is the most passionate or whoever sounds the most confident, and that is not necessarily what you should do. Same for who has the most recent argument because that's also not necessarily the way to go. So there you go. So we're going to be using a lot of disciplines in this class. Notably geology, bio, and environmental science. In geology, we're going to go over paleontology, including taphonomy, or the science of how things fossilize. We're going to go over stratigraphy, so how things lay down in rock layers, and biostratigraphy, so using fossils to understand rock layers. Petrology, so how rocks form, and volcanology, so volcanoes, and the plate tectonic theory, which is really important for paleontology. In biology, we're going to go over paleobiology, so how living old things lived, evolutionary biology, so how things evolve, including their phylogenetics, so their evolutionary relationships, taxonomy, how we classify living things, and systematics, so more about how we classify them and how they evolve. We're going to go over ecology, so the interactions of animals and organisms with each other and the environment. And then anatomy and physiology, so how the actual body of organisms work. And then in environmental science, we're going to go over climate change science, which is obviously relevant to today. Atmospheric science, so how the atmosphere changes. And oceanology, because some things live in the ocean. Some things alive in the ocean. I'm sure. Okay. So, course policies, we have a lot of them. You can peruse at your leisure. I don't want to go over too much detail because I don't want us to be here longer than we need to. But I will email you back within 24 hours. Just, email me directly. Don't comment in Classroom because, frankly, I get bombarded with emails from Classroom. And I just kind of skim them. So just email me directly, and I'll email you back in 24 hours. And if you want to meet with me at a time other than my scheduled office hours, once again, email me directly, and we'll figure it out. Because I will meet with you. I need you to, bang on my door for me to respond. You can't throw a pebble at the window. So academic dishonesty. Look, this class is non-accredited. Your mom is not going to find out you failed. So there is no one to benefit at all by cheating. I'm not going to judge you if you do poorly. I just want to help you. If you cheat, the only thing you're doing is preventing yourself from learning. That's it. That's all it is. So if your anxiety is telling you to cheat, tell your anxiety to shut the hell up. Okay. Attendance and participation is a complicated issue because people from all over the world are taking this class. We have a passcode system right now to try and use to get participation graded. Just work with us as we figure out how we're going to do this. Obviously, the syllabus is not entirely correct anymore. Disability and accommodation, as I said earlier, I want to make sure that everyone is able to access this class. If you need help because of a specific disability, just let us know. Blair is doing a lot of the legwork in terms of things like writing transcripts, so we're definitely going to be doing that. Religious holidays. I don't know of any major ones in the time period of this class, but if you have one and you need to miss class for that, that's fine. You can just do it like the people who always miss class in terms of participation. If something's due on a religious holiday, that's also fine. Just email me and we'll figure it out. As for missing assignments, just turn them in, guys. The first day an assignment is late, I'm going to deduct 10 percentage points. So you're automatically going to be at the B level, basically, or close to the B level. I will deduct then 5 more percentage points for the assignment each day. It is late after that point, so you're just going to keep dropping down until you reach 50. I'm never going to make you get a 0. If you turn it in, you always at least get half credit, but just turn it in on time. Let's just do that. Okay. So there's going to be quite a few assessments in this class, but this is mainly because, I don't know, the thing I hate most about college classes is that your grade is often determined by 3 tests or 4 tests. And that's a lot of pressure on those 4 tests. And I like having homework because it provides other grading opportunities. And they're less stressful. So you're going to have readings for the course. And just read them before the class they're assigned for because they're going to give you the background you need for the class. But we're not going to grade you to make sure you read them. And I think besides the primer, which was kind of important just for you guys to have a background for class, we're not going to even assess whether or not you read it on Classroom. I'm just going to do a reminder or something. Then the reading guide, which is your first assignment, and it's a big assignment and it's due next week, is 10% of your grade. That is a lot of your grade, so don't forget to do it. Yeah, if you want to edit your responses because you already turned it in because you thought it was due today, I think we can swing that because I saw someone with very short responses and I was discouraged by them. So, yeah, we can talk about that. Participation, we've already talked about that. Quizzes. For each class, you will have a small 10-question quiz, each question worth 1 point. Each question will be multiple choice. You'll get your grade back like instantly because it's multiple choice. And it's just to make sure that you retain the content, because the other assessments aren't going to be about content retention. Like, the exams are not going to be about, what kind of dinosaur is Diplodocus? That's not going to be what it is. So that's where we would ask that kind of question. Then you're going to also have small activities. You won't for this class because you have the Dino Primer, but you will for the next class, that do a little bit of content retention, so memorization, but also a little bit of content application to help you start thinking that way. Those are going to take up 21% of your grade. And then you'll have 3 big exams after each third-ish of the course. It's not actually divided into even thirds. It's just kind of divided based on where natural points to stop were in the class. And these exams will be take-home, so you can use your notes, because we can't exactly prevent you from using your notes, but don't talk to each other, you know, and don't use the internet, because, frankly, you might find the wrong answer. Things like David Peters' blog exist, so just don't go there. And those exams will be entirely content application anyway, so using the internet probably won't even help you. And then at the end of the class, midway through the class, we're going to assign you a group of organisms, or a group of dinosaurs. There's a lot of you. I mean, we're not going to assign groups to the auditors, but to the rest of you, so there might be some doubling up, but we're going to assign you a group of dinosaurs, and it's going to be your job to do kind of a project in whatever format you want, to talk about that group's evolution, and characteristics, and ecology, and major events in their evolution, and just give us a good detailed study of this group of animals. If I know you personally, I'm probably going to assign you a group that is outside of your comfort zone. And hopefully I'll get to know many of you personally over the next few weeks, and so you'll all get groups outside of your comfort zone. Okay, so yeah, I'm excited about that. I think it'll be fun. So, okay. For grades, I'm giving you what the grades will be in terms of points, because when it's percentages, people like to try to beg for, oh, I have 89.9, can I get an A? That kind of thing. So we're just going to do points. So if you get 900 or more points, you get an A. 800 or more, you get a B. 700 or more, you get a C. 600 or more, you get a D. / you pass for the pass for fail people. And if you get less than 600 points, you fail. This is the American system. It seems harsh. I apologize for that, but we do have a lot of assessments to help pad the grade out a little bit, so hopefully it'll all be okay. So this is just a basic course outline for what we're gonna do. So today is syllabus day and some intro stuff, and then the Permian and the origin of dinosaurs. Next class, which will be Blair, will be Triassic dinosaurs, the Triassic period, Triassic extinction, and the early Jurassic boom, and probably the differences between the 3 main groups of dinosaurs. Then next class that I teach, so next Monday, will be Thyreophorans, so the armored dinosaurs, so things like Ankylosaurus and Stegosaurus. Next Thursday, so Blair's back, will be the Neornithischians, so small, running, floofy things, and Marginocephalians, so those dinosaurs with armor on their heads, like Triceratops and Pachycephalosaurus. Then we'll have from me the ornithopods, so these were very social dinosaurs that were good at chewing. And then the next class will be an exam review. So we'll go over all that material that we covered, and then you'll be given your first take-home exam. Then after that, I'll start going over early sauropods and the diplodocoids, so those sauropods that had really long whip-like tails and their relatives. Then Blair's going to go over macronarians, so the really bulky and tall sauropods and the titanosaurs. Then I'll go over the ceratosaurs, megalosaurs, and carnosaurs, which are the 3 kind of generalistic large predator groups of theropods. And we're going to assign the group for your final project. I know that's early, but that gives you tons of time to work on it. So if, for example, you have a conflict with the day that that you have to turn it in, because I know a lot of schools start school then, in theory you should be able to complete it early. Yeah, and so then after that, Blair's going to go over the basal Coelurosaurs, so early bird-ish dinosaurs, and Maniraptorans, so other so dinosaurs that are getting very birdy. Tyrannosaurs are in this group. Then I'm going to go over Permians, so the really birdy dinosaurs, and the dinosaur to bird transition, so how these dinosaurs began to become more like modern birds. And Blair's going to go over the dinosaurs that have been traditionally called birds in the Mesozoic, and how modern birds evolved in the Mesozoic. Then I'm going to talk about the end Cretaceous extinction, the greatest tragedy in biologic history. I kid. And then Blair's going to do an exam review and then assign the second take-home exam. So that's a lot of material for the second exam. It's the biggest section of the class. So then we'll do the third section, which is the smallest section. I'm going to go over the first period of the Cenozoic and how modern bird groups originated. Blair's going to then go over how the ecology of the world kind of went upside down in the Neogene, which is the next period, and how that changed bird evolution, and then how the Pleistocene extinction and the Quaternary Ice Age impacted birds. Then I'm going to talk about dinosaurs today and dinosaurs in popular culture. And then there's going to be our final exam review and the assignment of the take-home exam 3. And then a week after that, your final project is going to be due. So that's it for the syllabus. If you have questions about the syllabus, feel free to ask after class. But it's a contract between us and you. And so, yeah. What is happening in the Discord now? Because I have 100% not been looking at it. Okay, there we go. Sorry that the slides go quite fast. My bad. Anyway, there we go. I'm just skimming things. Okay, anyway, so now we're going to do some basics, because some of you that aren't, you know, giant dino nerds don't know the basics, or some of you who are just humanities or art students don't know the basics. That's fine, but to get through the rest of this class, you got to know the basics, so we're going to go over them. Please don't be bored, rest of you. Okay, so what is evolution? As an evolutionary biologist, my answer to that question is a giant mystery. But besides that, the bare basics of what evolution is the changing of a population of organisms over time. So basically, when your body is like, okay, we need to make more of us, i.e. we need more cells, so the individual units of your body, they then replicate the DNA, so the blueprint for who you are. I'm doing this as simply as possible. I know it is more complicated than that. Trust me, I'm literally getting a PhD in it. So when they copy over that blueprint, sorry, I'm laughing at things. Okay, when they copy that blueprint, they make mistakes, and sometimes they catch the mistakes. That's nice. But sometimes the machines in your cells don't catch the mistakes. Most of the time for that, no one notices a damn thing because it's covered up by the extreme complicated mess that is your genetics and how the genes express themselves. But other times it doesn't, and sometimes that kills you. A lot of those times that's called cancer. But sometimes it actually gives you a change in your body that is beneficial. And so what happens is new changes appear in a population because of this mutation thing happening. Step guide from becoming a fossil, die. Oh, good lord. Okay. Let's not joke about death, because death is not necessarily something to go after. Why is Queen Victoria on your screen? Never. I'm easily distracted. Cracked article. Okay. I'm just like, that's Queen Victoria. Okay. I have many interests. Many outside of paleontology. Okay. So, once a population appears in a group of organisms, it either helps an organism survive and then reproduce, or it doesn't. If it does help that organism survive and reproduce, then it will be passed on to its offspring. Then hopefully that will help that offspring survive and reproduce, and then it'll pass the mutation on. And this is a very oversimplified explanation, but essentially, mutations that are beneficial will continue to be passed on in the population, and ones that are harmful will eventually be filtered out because they will kill you, and then you won't be able to have babies. Naturally, this is not, you know, an imperative on all living organisms. You don't have to reproduce, but, you know, and populations do in order to continue. So there you go. So these small changes eventually add up over time, and they can change lots of different things. So they can change your morphology or body shape, your physiology or bodily function, so how your body works, your ecology, so the role you have in your environment, and your life history, so how your life goes from beginning to end. And so the changes add up until, for whatever reason, and it could even just be one reason, this population that has this new mutation is unable to breed with other populations that it once could breed with. So the big example I have from undergrad is this population of parasitoid wasps. Parasitoid wasps. Yes. Wasps that stung fruit. They switched over to a new kind of fruit because they had mutations that let them do that. And so because of that, the time period that they would spend, say, incubating, overwintering is the technical term, in the ground for a while. Oh, come on. Sorry, ignore my computer. Was different than the time period of the population they split off from. So, like, this one population would go from, say, from like November to March without being on the ground, able to mate with other wasps. And then this new population would actually go from December to April or something. And so that means that the time period they would breed, which would be a certain number of months after they got out of the ground, would be different. And so they wouldn't breed with each other anymore. So that's an example of like your role in the environment changing who you can breed with. As for what I work with now, they have changes in how they develop, so changes in their developmentary mechanisms, and so that means that when they do mate, I'm working with a different kind of wasp now, their offspring can't live anymore, so they just die because the two new mechanisms that each has evolved are incompatible with one another. So lots of different things can change to lead to organisms no longer being able to breed. And so then once these two populations are separate from one another, they keep accumulating changes and they keep getting to be more and more different from one another until these things are so different from one another that they are visually distinct. And so that's what we see in the fossil record, because obviously we don't have fossils of everything from every time point for everywhere, because that would just be too many fossils, frankly. We wouldn't be able to walk a single inch without stepping on some important ancient dinosaur. So there you go. And it takes an amount, and it can take a very short period of time for these changes to accumulate, especially after a major ecological change like a mass extinction, or it can take a very long time. It depends. So it's all variable. Please don't take notes on the Java pop-up. Thank you. Yeah, so there you go. So that's evolution. So we track evolution, in a way, through phylogenetics, which is basically you look at how organisms evolve from one another and where they split off from one another using a family tree. That's all it is. That's all it is, a family tree. So you read it like a family tree. Sorry, I'm easily amused by the chat. Okay. And so they show the relationships between different groups of organisms by putting like traits on the tree. You can show the origin of traits and how they go through the entire group. And you can even calibrate a tree with the history of time, so you can like see how long ago one group diverged from another, and so on and so forth. And so we basically figure out phylogenetic trees by estimating the likelihood that organisms are related to each other. So it's all a bunch of fancy statistical math that I'm not going to get deeply into, because you guys really don't need to know it for the purposes of this course. If you want to know it in the future, great. That's not my problem, though. So you can do a lot of different methods to estimate the likelihood of the trees, and you can also look at how much, like, convergent evolution needs to have occurred for a certain tree to be possible. So it's basically looking and seeing what is the most likely explanation for trait distribution amongst organisms. You can use lots of different types of traits to generate your tree. You can use genetics, which is my preferred method because I'm a biologist and therefore a snob. You can also use proteins, which I would not recommend. You can use the morphology, so the shape of the organisms, which is often all we can do in paleontology, which I am forever bitter about. And you can obviously use a combination of all these data types to create trees. And I recommend combinations, frankly, when possible. So there are three major descriptions for different groups within a tree. How do you do genetics without DNA? You don't. That's what I'm saying. That I am, bitter that you can't do genetics with dead dinosaurs. It would solve so many problems. Anyway, so a clade is basically a common ancestor and all of that ancestor's descendants. You could also call that group of animals monophyletic. So clade is the noun, monophyletic is the adjective. There you go. Paraphyletic, which you can see here, is when you have a group of some, but not all, of the descendants of a common ancestor. And then polyphyletic is where you have a group of organisms that don't share a common ancestor. Now, granted, everything shares a common ancestor if you go back far enough, but just like a recent common ancestor. Like here you can see that these things branched off pretty quickly from one another, and then you're just kind of excluding this one little tree here. But here you have this, and then you have this all the way over here, and you're missing lots of different things. It's kind of like the shape, really. Anyway, so those are the three major types of trees. There are multiple different ways to define a clade, so a monophyletic group. I am bad at spelling things. Sorry for that in advance. Anyway, so the really nice grouping, the nice fancy grouping is called the node-stem triplet. So you have a node, so a common ancestor of two groups and all of that ancestor's descendants. Then you have the first stem, that is all of the things more closely related to X than to Y. And then you have the second stem, which is the reverse. So I got this diagram after I wrote this, and then I didn't edit it, so these things don't match up. So anyway, so like here you have the node, which is ancestor A of both, the most recent common ancestor of B and C. Then you have the stem, which is everything more closely related to C, and you have the other stem, which is everything more closely related to B. So a really common example of this that we're going to see a lot are archosaurs. So archosaur is defined as the most recent common ancestor of birds and crocodiles, and so the stem leading to birds is everything more closely related to birds than to crocodiles, and the stem leading to crocodiles is everything more closely related to crocodiles than to birds. So we like node-stem triplets. They're very nice. They make up a lot of phylogeny stuff. So some more common terms that we're going to have. So in this red circle, we have a modern group of organisms represented by the pink triangle. And then we have all the extinct organisms represented by the yellow oval that are more closely related to it than to another group of modern organisms, this pink triangle, which is called the total or pan group. So this is the total group of this side of the tree, and this is the out group, so the thing we're using to define this total group with. Or against, I guess, is a better adverb. Preposition. Word. And so then the modern group in question is the crown of that total group, so this is the crown, and the extinct organisms in question are the stems, so this is the stem. So for birds, this would be birds, this would be crocodiles, and these would be non-avian dinosaurs and pterosaurs, if that makes sense. So there you go. Now we're going to switch gears and go into geology, specifically geologic time. I'm sure Blair is going to want to go over some taphonomy stuff and some... I'm mature. Okay, so we're going to go... Blair might want to go over some taphonomy stuff and etc. in his class, but I am, in the interest of time, not going to do that because we're almost an hour in already. Oh boy. Okay, so the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. That's a long-ass time. We know this because of dating rocks. So chemicals oftentimes decay at a set rate. So like half of that chemical will decay in a certain number of years, and so then half of the remainder will decay in that same number of years, and so on and so forth. And because of this, we can date rocks with these particular chemicals in them using the time that we know they take to decay. And so because of that, we know the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, and we also know the ages of many other things. So we like this. We like the decaying of rocks. Yes, you also like the decaying of rocks. Yes, you do, Minerva. Okay, anyway. So we then divide the time periods of the Earth into increasingly smaller pieces in order to talk about major changes in both how the Earth is shaped and what's going on the Earth, and life on Earth. So a lot of these, once you get past a certain point in Earth's history, these divisions are mainly based on life, but really early stuff is mostly based on the rocks. So the Eon is the biggest division. There's only 4 of them in Earth's history: the Hadean, the Archean, the Proterozoic, and the Phanerozoic. The only one we are going to talk about in this class is the Phanerozoic, because that's the only one dinosaurs exist in. So there you go. Then there are eras, so those are the next division down. Then periods are within eras, epochs are within periods, and ages are within epochs, and ages are the smallest unit. They usually define very specific periods in Earth's history. I need water, if you will excuse me. Goodness gracious. Okay, so our example here is we have the Phanerozoic Eon, right here on the side, which contains the Cenozoic era. So there's that major grouping there, which has 3 periods: the Paleogene, the Neogene, and the Quaternary. So then we're going to focus on the Quaternary because we're going to the modern day here. The Quaternary contains 2 epochs, the Holocene and the Pleistocene, and then those contain 5 ages. The Holocene is its own age because it's very recent. It's basically modern history, which is why I strongly object to the term Anthropocene. I think I do. I don't know. I'm not really actually sure where I stand on that. If we do have the Anthropocene, I'd want it to be within the Holocene, and I am getting way ahead of myself. Anyway, but then the Pleistocene has ages within it, so the Terentian, the Chibbianian, the Calabrian, and the Jurassian. I'm probably pronouncing all this wrong, but and then they're defined by the time. Why is everyone sending F? I don't... Okay. This is fine. I don't understand what's going on. Oh. Okay. I'm still oh, good lord. Okay, fine. Anyway, nerds. Okay, so, so this is just kind of a basic guide to how things are split apart. Apparently this is not the kind of meme I'm aware of. Okay, anyway, so just to give you, I don't want you guys to use this as a guide for shit. I just want you to look at this and appreciate how insignificant humans are, because the first comment is, so it's basically a 24-hour clock of the Earth. You can see that humans evolved in the last, 2 seconds. So we are insignificant. And so most of the Earth's history has been the 3 eons we're not going to talk about: the Hadean, the Archean, and the Proterozoic, because, frankly, most of Earth's history has been tiny blobs floating in the ocean doing their best. And one day, those blobs finally figured out how to be bigger blobs, and that's when things started to get interesting. And over time, those bigger blobs got into more shapely blobs, and so on and so forth, until suddenly dinosaurs. It is more complicated than that, but we are going to start from the period where animals with backbones, so vertebrates, were on land. We are not going to go back earlier than that, because everything before that is a little irrelevant. To be the pale 202 intro theme. Clearly. I'm sorry. I laugh at my own jokes. I'm that nerdy. Okay, so this is the big chart of broken dreams. I'm kidding. This is the official geology time scale. I don't like the color scheme, which is why when I made my own that was like to scale, which you can see on ADAD if you're brave enough, uses different colors, but I figured I should use the official one for this. So this is where I introduce the things that we care about. So the periods we are going to talk about in this class are the Permian, which is right before the dinosaurs, the Triassic, which is when dinosaurs actually show up, the Jurassic and the Cretaceous, when dinosaurs got to be big and terrifying, the Paleogene, when, you know, birds were the only dinosaurs left and they were figuring out what they were, the Neogene, when grass started fucking shit up, and the Quaternary, which is today in the recent past, aka the time of cold. As for epochs, I'm not going to ask you guys to remember ages, even though I might reference them, so know how to look them up. They're all on Wikipedia. I might reference them, but you guys shouldn't have to remember them. As for epochs, just know that the Triassic and the Jurassic are divided into early, middle, and late. The Permian, I'm really not going to reference the epochs, but they do have names. The Lopingian, the Guadalupian, and the Caesaralian. Okay, but I'm probably not going to reference the epochs. The Cretaceous just has the early and late, which I don't understand, because the middle has a distinct character to it. That's fine. And then for the Cenozoic periods, you definitely have to know these epochs. I will definitely reference them. They are definitely distinct from one another. You have the Paleocene, then the Eocene, then the Oligocene, then the Miocene, the Pliocene, the Pleistocene, and then the Holocene. So just work on memorizing the order of those now. Just work on it. It will help your entire life going forward. You will thank me. I will be a 60-year-old woman-ish person rocking on a wheelchair. No, I won't. Hopefully I'll have legs. Rocking on a rocking chair with Max napping next to me, and you'll just come up to my porch and be like, thank you. Thank you for making me memorize what order everything went in. I'll be like, you're welcome, stranger. Anyway. So those are your basic guides to things. We will have more basic guides in the future, I'm assuming. So the Pliocene is not the worst epoch. I would say that the worst epoch is probably the current one. The Holocene. No, I can't. I actually like people. I'd say the Oligocene is actually the worst epoch because it's kind of boring. But there you go. Any Husels. No, it's not. Anyway, so we're moving on. So, finally, the actual subject of this class. What is a dinosaur? Jazz hands. The answer to that is my birds. My birds are the only dinosaurs that matter. I kid. I'm 100% kidding. Okay, so dinosaurs are a very specific group of reptiles, a very ancient group of reptiles, and they are not all extinct because birds exist, and frankly, if you tell a bird they're not a dinosaur, they probably will get pissed at you. Not because they're aware of what you said, but because birds are crazy. Dinosaurs are not just any prehistoric creature. Don't let the media fool you. They aren't any reptile. And they aren't lizards. I'm very concerned. I saw that someone wrote lizards as the answer for what dinosaurs are on the primer reading guide, and they aren't lizards. They're just not lizards. Stop telling people I'm dead. Don't yell at birds. It's not nice. Okay, so we're going to go into the specifics of what dinosaurs are, but just get that in your head. They are a very specific, very old, but still around group of dinosaurs. I mean, group of reptiles. Slip of words. Why are you on reptile evolution? Okay. So, they are not lizards. They are the worst lizards. Their name literally means terrible lizard because they're really bad at being lizards. Okay. I know that's not why. Okay, so the definition of a dinosaur is the most recent common ancestor of Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Cetiosaurus, and all of that most recent common ancestor's descendants. Memorize this. Write it upon your brain. Have it printed on your tombstone. Learn it. This is the most important sentence in this entire class. Oh, God. Okay. The reason I'm using those 3 dinosaurs is because the first 2 are the first 2 dinosaurs found, and then the last one is one of the first described dinosaurs from the last major dinosaur group. This is a long story. I'm probably not going to get very much into the long story. I will touch on it on a later slide. Cetiosaurus is like one of the earliest sauropods we've ever found. That's why I use it. Basically, there are 3 major groups of dinosaurs. Theropods, which are bipedal, mostly carnivorous. No, that's wrong. Bipedal dinosaurs that started out mostly carnivorous and ended up being birds. Ornithoceans, which are this catch-all group, this giant group of herbivorous dinosaurs that did lots of weird things. And sauropods, long-necked dinosaurs. So there you go. Those are the 3 major groups of dinosaurs. Yeah. You can use any theropod, any ornithocean, and any sauropod to make your definition. You don't have to use Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Cetiosaurus. Another common trio is the house sparrow, Triceratops, and Diplodocus. I like using this one a lot. You also can mix and match. You could do Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Diplodocus. You could do Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, and Brontosaurus. Like, you can do lots of different things. It's up to you. But I like to use one of the 2 I listed here. Sauropods are dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were literally defined. I'm not going to pronounce it right because I've pronounced it ornithocean my entire life, and you can't get me to stop now. It's too late. I'm 26. Almost. I'm almost 26. Okay, so there you go. So by this definition, dinosaurs include birds because birds evolved from dinosaurs, and so because this is defined as an evolutionary group, it includes all the descendants, which includes birds because they evolved from dinosaurs. If you're arguing about whether or not birds evolved from dinosaurs, that's an entire other discussion, and I'll get into it during the dinosaur to bird transition, but the evidence is against you. This group also includes animals like Velociraptor, Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Apatosaurus, and Stegosaurus. I'm going to keep pronouncing it ornithoceans. I'm sorry. I just let it go. Okay. So here are 3 nice examples of the 3 major groups of dinosaurs. We got a theropod here. This is Ceratosaurus. We have a nice sauropod, Savanosaurus. I just like this illustration. I think it's shaped like a friend. And then we have an ornithocean, Lambeosaurus, but ornithoceans have a lot of different shapes, so I probably should have just put 4 different animals on the slide, but I didn't feel like it. Okay, so there you go. There are lots of things that are commonly misconceived as dinosaurs, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them. Pterosaurs, which are those animals that lived alongside dinosaurs. They were big reptiles like dinosaurs, and they had large membranous wings for flying. They're often called the flying dinosaurs or pterodactyls. These aren't dinosaurs because dinosaurs are basically defined to exclude them. I'm a little sad about it because they are closely related to dinosaurs, and my life would be so much easier if pterosaurs were just dinosaurs. So much easier. But they're not. Also, they might not be closely related to dinosaurs. Like, that's the leading hypothesis, but there is some debate worth paying attention to. None of that debate is by David Peters. Anyway, then there's Dimetrodon, which is the large animal with the big sail on its back. This is not a dinosaur. It is a synapsid, which means it's actually closely related to us because we're synapsids. It is nowhere near being a dinosaur. It also lived long before dinosaurs evolved. It lived in the early Permian, so no. And then there are the... yes, Dimetrodon is not a dinosaur. It is your grandmother, kind of. Yeah, it's more your aunt or uncle, but it's more fun to say grandmother. I'm gonna keep saying ornithoshins. You can't stop me because, frankly, it's too late. Marine reptiles, so the things that lived in the water that were the big, scary monsters in the Mesozoic, so like mosasaurs and plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs, those aren't dinosaurs either. They're also not really closely related, probably. At the very least, mosasaurs aren't. Their phylogeny is basically a mess, and that's not for this class. I don't have to talk about it. So, but those aren't dinosaurs either, because they're not part of that family group. Ta-da! And lots of other things fall into that not part of the family group category. So there you go. Anyway, so dinosaurs are part of a very specific group of reptiles. Echrondraco is objectively the best pterosaur name, by the way. Anyway, Echrondraco wins. I'm with Sid. Okay, so dinosaurs are archosaurs, which are called the ruling reptiles. So I've talked about this a little bit before in this lecture, but that is the group of crocodiles, birds, and all their extinct relatives. Because when we started to do DNA sequencing of animals, we realized that birds nested within reptiles. So we've always known that they're reptiles, or we've known they're reptiles for a while, to the exclusion of mammals. And so we came up with a name for birds and their closest reptile relatives, and that name was ruling reptiles. So that's what archosaurs are. Archosaurs are they have like a couple traits in common. One of them is that they have their teeth in sockets. Another big one, when they have teeth. Obviously, modern birds don't have teeth, so they don't have sockets for their teeth, but their ancestors did, and that's what matters. It's also probable that the ancestor to all archosaurs was warm-blooded or close to it, because crocodile hearts are very similar to warm-blooded hearts. I say that with big air quotes, which indicates they probably evolved from a warm-blooded ancestor, and they just don't need to be anymore. It also includes there are a lot of weird archosaurs from the Mesozoic in addition to dinosaurs. Pterosaurs are probably archosaurs. So if you go with the idea of archosaurs being, archosaurs being a node that you can divide it into two stems, the crocodile stem and the bird stem, and so dinosaurs are on the bird stem. So dinosaurs include birds, but they have all the ones that we think of as traditional dinosaurs are stem birds. Chivipteryx is something else. Oh God, can we just not have Peters in the lecture chat for my own sanity? Thank you. And hoozles. Moving on. So here's the big family tree of archosaurs. Oh God, another Peters. Can you just banned from the chat? Banned from the chat. I can't. Okay, anyway, so you can see a variety of shapes and sizes that archosaurs come in. I'm getting distracted by the chat. I'm turning my phone upside down for 5 seconds. Okay, so, and a lot of the various groups. So these are crocodiles and their relatives. So this is stem crocodiles. These are living crocodiles. These are birds and their relatives. These are stem birds. These are birds. So even though pterosaurs aren't dinosaurs, you can technically call them birds because they're stem birds. Oh, life is fun. Anyway, moving on from my weird cackling noise. So, how are dinosaurs related to one another within the dinosaur tree? Yeah, I don't have the best images because I'm limited by Wikipedia. So let's just remember that. Okay, let's not derail the conversation too much just because people need to pay attention to my lovely rambling. Yeah, so we, for the longest time, have assumed that dinosaurs are related like this because sauropods and theropods share, for the most part, a similar hip structure to the exclusion of ornithischians. This is an oversimplified explanation because birds actually evolved the same hip structure as ornithischians later, but for the most part, these two are united by that trait to the exclusion of ornithischian dinosaurs, and so early paleontologists were like, yeah, this forms a net. This is a good way to group these things. So, and though other ideas have been proposed from time to time, this is mainly stuck. Other hypotheses float around. Last year, one of them was proposed using an old term for dinosaurs, long story, but this idea was that because ornithischians and theropods actually have a couple things in common, they're more closely related to each other to the exclusion of sauropods. This is called the ornithocellida hypothesis. A very long time ago, a scientist proposed that ornithischians and sauropods were more closely related to each other than either is to theropods because they both eat plants. And so they named that group Phytodinosauria. The study that got the ornithocellida hypothesis is not good. They do not have great statistical methods, and they were not very rigorous in their traits that they used to form their tree. So I press X to doubt very heavily, and I want scientists I trust more than Matthew Barron to investigate it. And they are! So maybe one day I'll have a better answer for you than probably Saurischia. But that's my answer right now. It's probably Saurischia. So there you go. I'm doing what I do. Barron is also an abusive frat boy, for the record. Yes, I do know press F to doubt and not press F to pay respects. I'm sorry. I only have so many knowledges. Okay. Moving on. So, one of these is right. Or maybe they all split from each other at exactly the same time, and that could be true. No, it couldn't, probably. Anyway, moving on. So, Archosaurs, the group that dinosaurs are a part of, are sauropsids, or reptiles. So all animals more closely related to modern birds than to modern mammals. Mammals plus birds form the two stems of the node amniota, or those animals that lay eggs protected by the amniotic sac, or strong eggs. If you've watched the history of the entire world, I guess. Okay. So basically, amphibians, fish, and invertebrates aren't in this group, or plants, or anything else. So synapsids form the other side of this node stem triplet, opposite sauropsids, and so synapsids are things more closely related to mammals than birds. That's where Dimetrodon falls. That's where we fall, because we are mammals. So basically, those are the two halves of this tree. You can see the diagram of this here. So this is amniota. Hi, guys. So you can see here, this is the lead off to sauropsids. This is the lead off to synapsids. I have no sanity. It died when I was 13. Yeah, that sounds about right. Anyway, so these are the basic big morphologies of the various groups and whatever. So there you go. Sauropsids and synapsids. So back in the day, everyone... Yeah, I couldn't find one that went into detail on both, and I decided to err on the side of sauropsids, because that's what we care about in this class. Anyway, so as for traits, because back in the day we would define organisms based on traits rather than relationships, we only have one trait that all dinosaurs share to the exclusion of other things now, and that trait is having their legs upright because of open hip sockets, or perforate acetabulums. I know that's not the right plural. Yeah. You don't need to remember that term. Or maybe you do. There you go. Sorry, the bird, someone else got home. Anyway, so basically most reptiles have a sprawling gait. Their legs go off to their sides because this is how animals adapted to walking on land in terms of tetrapods. Other animals have evolved upright postures. Birds and so dinosaurs and mammals evolved it this way with the open hip socket, so this is what we have. But they all evolved it independently from one another. Rauisuchians, a group of stem crocodiles, did it really weird, and they evolved it so that their legs are kind of in this weird pillar structure underneath their hips. So very different. But that's really the big thing about dinosaurs, is that they have an erect posture, which helps them to be more active. A big thing about early dinosaur evolution is that they are very active animals, very like energetic in their environments, and that's still true of birds today. I don't know if you've met a bird, but they are fast and they walk fast. So there you go. Okay, but yeah, so we really define dinosaurs based on the relationships, but they do have a trait in common, and that's that open hip socket. So there you go. So they do have a lot of other traits that are, you know, very characteristic of dinosaurs, but they do share them with other groups. So endothermic, or being warm-blooded, as opposed to ectothermic, or cold-blooded. That's probably shared with all other archosaurs. Archosaurs probably evolved that sometime in their lineage leading up to them, and so then all archosaurs were warm-blooded, and just because crocodiles aren't anymore, that's not the problem with dinosaurs. Good lord. Anyway, digitigrades, so walking on toes, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more on the next slide, but dinosaurs walk on their toes, which helps them move faster. This is a trait that is shared with their close ancestors, so that's not unique to just dinosaurs. Two sockets, having your teeth in sockets, was once thought to be kind of special for dinosaurs, and no, archosaurs have them in general. Protofeathers, so fluffy covering on their body, that's probably shared with pterosaurs, and thus with most stem birds, if not all stem birds. So all of these traits are shared across the groups. I'm glad the chat is so relevant to what I'm talking about. Anyway, so brief explanation of the fun that is posture. An animal can be plantigrade, so they walk on all the bones of their foot. We're plantigrade. It can be digitigrade, so it only walks on the toes, and the other bones of the foot form part of the leg. So this is what dinosaurs do. Or you can be unguligrade. Lord help me. Where you walk on a single toe adapted into a hoof. And that's really just seen in hoofed mammals, but you never know. So where did dinosaurs, this group of active, fast, fluffy animals, come from? How did they get here in the first place? This is all about what came before them. And two major mass extinctions essentially set the stage for dinosaurs to be able to evolve in the first place, and for them to take over during most of the Mesozoic period as the large land animals. So we're... Oof, I'm sorry. Burps. So the Permian extinction essentially allowed dinosaurs to evolve at all, and the Triassic extinction left the stage empty for dinosaurs to take over. So there you go. So now we're moving on to amniotes, so egg-laying things in the Permian. Why is huff a meme? Hoof. Oh, hoof. I am saying hoof correctly. I swear to God, hoof is correct. Hoof. Okay. Anyway, so now we're going to move on to amniotes in the Permian. So during the Permian, there were very few dinosaur relatives. Archosauromorphs, so things that are close to being archosaurs, were very, very rare, and there were no known archosaurs proper. Most reptiles at the time were parareptiles, so this group of do I still have that? Yes, I do. Anyway, so this group of sauropsids that split off from all the other ones. This is an example here. It's called a pariasaur. Most of the larger land animals, though, weren't reptiles at all. They were synapsids. So here's Dimetrodon, here's Grandma. It and things like it were the big land animals at the time, to the exclusion of... Look, I have to use Wikipedia. So it was synapsids were the big land animals, and they weren't all like Dimetrodon. There were things like Gorgonopsids and Dinocephalians and lots of others, and I'm not doing synapsids for this class, so look at that on your own time. Maybe there will be a history of synapsids lecture at some point, but it wouldn't be by me. So there you go. There were archosaurs in the Permian. Only like 4 species are named. I have 3 pictures here. Yes, I know they're not great pictures. I do what I can with what I can do. Anyway, one of the earliest ones is a name I can't pronounce, Enigmastropheus, from about 255 million years ago. Here it is right there. Then you also have Archosaurus, which is actually an archosaur. It's an archosauromorph from about 252. You have Proterosaurus, which might have been around 255 or earlier. There was also Eosaurus. One second, I'm going to look at my cheat notes. Eorosaurus, there you go. So there were lots of different... So there weren't a lot of different archosaurs. They came from around the world, but they seem to mainly be clustering in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. There are a few examples of archosaurs in the equator during the Permian, but they're kind of dubious. This is a dubious fossil here. As for other archosaurs, they really kind of cluster in the colder areas, and so that leads me to a big problem. Whether or not archosauromorphs were actually rare, or whether or not it's preservation bias. So there's really only like 4 archosauromorphs during the Permian, and all the rest of them show up in the Triassic. There were very few other reptiles during the Permian. Most of the other animals were parareptiles and synapsids. Whether or not archosauromorphs and other early diapsids, so things closely related to reptiles, were actually rare, or whether or not they just weren't where things were being preserved, is a big question. So there is some evidence that suggests that the equator, so if we look back here, really, now is not the time to flirt. Who's flirting? Okay. Whether or not longest squamous from the Triassic, and it's probably not an archosaur. Okay, so whether or not, so the middle is were probably really warm, really wet climates during the Triassic. Really warm and wet, which wouldn't have been very good conditions for fossilization. So it's entirely possible that there were more archosaurs in habitats where things didn't fossilize very well. And so because of that, we don't have any evidence of them. But these early archosauromorphs would have been more adapted to these hot, wet climates. And so they wouldn't have been very common in the drier places at the poles. But that's, a hypothesis, and it might be wrong, and they might have been very rare anyway. Either way, they were not very common throughout the world like they would be after the Permian extinction. So, there. I'm sorry your birds are flirting too. Anyway, so basically, archosaurs weren't doing great in the Permian. They were competing with everything around them, and they needed a miracle, frankly, in my opinion. Anyway, so now we're going to move on to the Permian extinction, which is the best extinction. Very good. It's called the Great Dying because it's the biggest mass extinction that we know of. So the Permian extinction was huge. It was caused mainly by the Siberian traps, which were these big lava deposits. So you can see here the general area. They cover Siberia. They're huge. That were exploding magma for a really long time at the end of the Permian period. These explosions caused lots of changes in the environment. Obviously, a lot of ash was released, which changed how Pangea was working at the time. It caused changes in the ocean chemistry. So these changes in the ocean chemistry caused acidity to increase and oxygen to go down, which was killing everything in the water. And the formation of Pangea was changing a lot of the environments within on the land masses, and so there was this huge desert. And actually, earlier on in the Permian, there's this valley in the middle of Pangea that has had its temperatures estimated, and that temperature is estimated at 73 degrees Celsius. So things were hot and dying, and it was not a good time. So basically the world was exploding, and naturally that killed things. About 96% of marine species are estimated to die, and 70% of terrestrial. I personally think it's higher than that. Lots of people think that it is less than that, but I know a paleontologist who does a lot of study of extinction rate and how we estimate it in the fossil record, and he thinks that we are grossly underestimating all mass extinctions, and I'm inclined to agree. So it might have been bigger. Yeah, so things were dying a lot. It's the only known mass extinction of insects. So insects don't typically suffer from mass extinctions, but they did here. It's also one of the only known mass extinctions of plants, because plants usually don't have to deal with this stuff either. There were probably multiple pulses of extinction as like volcanoes erupted and they caused a lot of bad stuff immediately. Then things kind of calmed down, but then the effects of all the ash and sulfur caused more changes, etc. And it was actually preceded by a smaller extinction called Olson's extinction, which caused a major change in synapsid life, so that didn't help anything. Yeah. And so most large land animals went extinct. There were only a few groups of parareptiles and synapsids that survived the extinction. And then parareptiles would actually just go completely extinct in the Triassic. Synapsids obviously survived in the form of us, but non-mammalian synapsids also died in the Triassic. So this freed up a lot of ecological niches, so for things to diversify into where they couldn't before. And diapsids, since they were generalists for the most part, were able to survive this hellscape. And so that was very important because the new era of Earth needed new things to evolve. This extinction began the Mesozoic era, so it ended the first era of the Phanerozoic eon and ended the Paleozoic, and it started the Mesozoic, or middle life. It caused a major shift in living things. Marine life became more quote-unquote modern, meaning that basically invertebrates were more mobile rather than stationary, and there were big vertebrate predators in the water, marine reptiles, but today mammals. And so it was a more modern fauna, and coral reefs were a big thing again, that kind of thing. And land life switched to being reptile-dominated rather than synapsid-dominated. Synapsids, meanwhile, became smaller and more generalist, so they were becoming mammals, basically. Invertebrates are not assholes. Invertebrates are important, and I love them. Anyway, and so archosaurs, which were active animals, fast animals, warm-blooded animals, were rapidly diversifying because, you know, they had good traits, and suddenly niches were free. Hooray! So these are just some family trees of archosauromorphs, so things close to archosaurs. Don't worry too much about these trees, but they show how things, basically all of these are things that appeared in the Triassic, and they diversified really quickly, and so then they kept diversifying until finally archosaurs appeared very, very soon after the end Permian extinction. And lots of other weird things evolved during that time. I wish I could go over them. I love Triassic weirdos, but we only have so much time, so there you go. So now we're going to go on to our last part of the class, which is the origin of dinosaurs themselves, out of the ashes of this extinction. We're doing good on time, yay! Clapping for me. Okay, so one group of Triassic weirdos were the dinosauromorphs, which split off from pterosaurs basically right after the Permian extinction. So pterosaurs and dinosaurs. So what we think is archosaurs had a very rapid evolution during and after the Permian extinction, so rapid that pterosaurs and dinosaurs probably split from each other very soon after the extinction, which is wild because archosaurs probably first appeared right after the extinction. So everything is evolving very, very, very quickly. We're almost done, bizwiz, bizwiz. So then you can get food. Anyway, so everything was evolving very, very quickly. So whether or not dinosauromorphs first evolved during the Permian extinction is actually up for debate. It's possible that all these archosaurs first were evolving in the extinction itself in response to major environmental change and emptying of niches. And so, but we don't know because we don't have fossil evidence, which is a bummer. So these dinosauromorphs were fluffy, they were warm-blooded, they ran on their toes, they were very fast, they were very small, and they were very lightly built. And dinosauromorphs had a more upright stance than most reptiles do. They weren't perfectly upright like dinosaurs would end up being, but these early dinosauromorphs were on their way to that. Meanwhile, pterosaurs were doing weird things and learning how to fly. So Lagurpidids were the first group of dinosauromorphs to diverge from the rest of them. These guys were actually really weird. They were adapted for hopping, so they were essentially bird rabbits. They were very rare. There weren't a lot of them, mostly in the southern hemisphere. And they were very small, and they existed in the beginning of the late Triassic, so they weren't actually around for very long either. So, yeah, but they're cool, and they look weird. Oh no, this is wrong. Oh crap, pretend this didn't happen. Okay, so dinosaur forms, which are all the things very closely related to dinosaurs, had shorter front limbs than the Lagurpidids did, kind of. Long story. And their hip sockets were either partially open or fully open, as in the case of dinosaurs. So this is an early one of those called Marsuchus. You can see how it has even more of an upright posture. Oh no, your stream went down. Oh no, I'm sorry. What? I don't know why. The PowerPoint will be up online. I'm sorry. Okay, I have the internet now. Anyway, so one major group of dinosaur forms were the silosaurids, which were a bigger group than Lagurpidids. They lived longer. They were very important, and they're actually sister to dinosaurs. So, like, dinosaurs and their sister group, silosaurids. Very closely related. They also were quadrupedal, a lot of them, or at least facultatively, so they regrew long arms. They were probably mostly herbivorous. There is a slight chance that they were dinosaurs. It really depends on a lot of things. Some scientists think that they're ornithischians. I don't, but there you go. We're not really going to go very much into that, but these were early relatives of dinosaurs that split off from dinosaurs. And actually, the earliest one of these guys is known from 240 million years ago, so 10 years after the Permian extinction, which means that the group that is directly to dinosaurs evolved by this time. Whether or not dinosaurs did or not is a big question. So, when did the first dinosaurs appear? Sorry if you lost video. I swear to God, I'm still recording it. 10 million years. I meant 10 million years, not 10 years. Oh, God. I can only talk so much. Anyway, so, there's this scrap of bones, this pile of scraps from the same time as the earliest Silosaurid. This pile of scraps was named Nyasasaurus. Because it's a pile of scraps, we can't figure out exactly what it is. It is either the earliest known dinosaur or the closest thing to being a dinosaur that we have without being a dinosaur. If it is the earliest known dinosaur, that means that dinosaurs evolved 240 million years ago or earlier, which is frankly what I'm betting on. Or, if it's not the earliest dinosaur, that means dinosaurs evolved between 240 million years ago and 233 million years ago. The first definite dinosaur, Eoraptor, shown here on the right, showed up 233 million years ago in South America, so very close to Nyasasaurus. And either way, these first dinosaurs were fast, bipedal generalists, and they were slightly better adapted for running because their legs were completely underneath their bodies. I'm ignoring that. Anyway, so this is probably around when dinosaurs first evolved. Some scientists posit that they first evolved in the Permian extinction and that it was just this big evolutionary boom of archosaurs. We have no fossil evidence for this, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that was true. I wish we had fossils. So hopefully more dead dinosaur morphs will help to answer this question. So, brief review of everything we went over today. In terms of content, we talked about the basics of evolution. We talked about how phylogenetics works. We went over the basics of geologic time. We talked about what exactly a dinosaur is. We talked about what reptiles are and what kinds of reptiles dinosaurs are. We talked about the Permian period a little bit. We went over the Permian extinction. And we went over where dinosaurs originally came from and how their close relatives first evolved and how dinosaurs first evolved. So that's it for this class. Here's a list of vocab words. They're not necessarily for you to memorize, just things for you to kind of go over if you're confused about any terms. I'm probably going to use a lot of these terms going forward in the future. This PowerPoint will be put up online for you to look at, especially since I know a lot of you guys lost video, which is unfortunate. Basically, next class, Blair is going to go over the Triassic, all the different types of dinosaurs that existed in the Triassic, a little bit more about the differences between the three major groups of dinosaurs, including Herrerasaurs, which I see you guys talking about in the chat, and then the Triassic extinction and how dinosaurs began to really diversify after that event. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the first class. So I'm sorry that I rambled a bit and got distracted a lot by various things. That's just how my brain works. My birds say hello. I'm assuming Max also says, yes, Max said hello just then. And we'll also figure out how to put this recording up online. The passcode for this lecture is Dimetrodon. So if you listen to this lecture, please write Dimetrodon into the passcode thing, and then we'll know that you were paying attention. So hooray! So there you go. Yeah, I'm going to post the PowerPoint. I know the stream went out. Don't worry, everything is on there between that and my lecture, so you guys should be good there. There will also be a quiz, your first quiz. Be sure to fill out the dinosaur primer reading guide because that's your first assignment. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day. Okie dokie. Bye.